This is Revolutionizing Recruitment with Kathleen Duffy, the art of attracting, acquiring, and retaining talent. Here's Kathleen.
Thanks for joining me again for my conversation with JT O'Donnell. We've been talking about what inspired her to start Work It Daily, an online platform dedicated to helping people solve their biggest career problems, and how she's doing that. So JT, it would be illegal at this point to have a conversation about career coaching and recruiting without discussing the Great Resignation. Coincidentally, I was just interviewed by our local NBC affiliate about the Great Resignation. And during the segment, there was another individual talking about why he left the traditional workforce to pursue his passion and to start a business. Now he's a wedding photographer and booked probably until the next decade. And I'm sure you hear these stories all day, every day. And I was wondering if you have a few favorite stories of individuals that you've worked with that have gone through that transformation too.
You know, it's interesting because what you just shared, I think, is lack of a better term, the sexy story of the Great Resignation, right? I quit my boring job that wasn't fulfilling, and I went off and became an underwater basket weaver, and I'm amazing at it, and I'm making six figures. You know, like we're definitely showcasing a lot of that in the Great Resignation, which I think is inspirational, but in some ways it worries me because it reminds me of Mark Zuckerberg and how obsessed we were with the Facebook story about this young man building this platform, right? And then obviously as time goes on, it's very hard to do that. It's a lovely story, but not everybody does that. And a lot of people have pursued it in vain, which is what worries me about the Great Resignation. Because if you quit your job and you don't have a very clear sense of what you want to do and how you're going to make it profitable, and you're going to be able to, and it suits your life, you can fall on your face. And that, again, can cause a lot of career crisis and put you back in a worse place than you are. So I worry when I hear these stories. So when you ask me about success stories, to me, the stories are the people that said, you know, I can do better. So let's start by finding one thing I really want and making it happen for myself. My favorite stories have been the people that have listened to my advice on salary negotiation, have listened to my advice on having performance conversations with their manager about, hey, it's been over a year and I haven't got a raise and this is what I've done. And I love those stories because one of, two outcomes really. Either the manager acknowledges it and they get the raise, or the manager says, no, it's not really in our budget, and they start to look for a new job. And what's been fun for me is to log in every day, for example, on TikTok. Every single day, I will get a post, a comment where somebody said, I took your advice and I just went and got a better job and a 40% raise, a 60% raise. Those are the stories I'm most proud of in the Great Resignation, because we had to fix the people that were being undervalued. We had to show them that they could go out there and make more money and not feel held hostage with golden handcuffs. I tell people you are not an employee. If you think you're an employee, then you feel held hostage and that you're being paid with bribes. You are a business of one. You are a service provider. So when you figure out what kind of service you want to provide, what brings you the most joy and satisfaction, when you figure out what it's worth, when you figure out who you want to sell it to, and when you go out and sell it, you can create amazing partnerships and restore that employee-employer relationship. Because again, you're a business of one, and when it's not going well anymore, you step back and say, what can I change about it? Is it time for me to go find a new client? We have to change the mindset. And I hope that's what comes out of the Great Resignation, because we need people to be smarter about their choices. The one thing I do know is this: you can have the Great Resignation of 2021, but you're also going to see the Great Restructuring of 2022. And a lot of people are just going to go out and land jobs and get higher pay, but not think about when the pendulum swings back the other way, when the economy shifts again. And those individuals will struggle because, they won't be in demand anymore, and they won't have created additional value, and they won't have thought about how this could be a long-term play for them. So not exactly the answer to your question, but I just had to get that out there because, there are so many of these cool stories about people leaving and starting their own thing. But I want to commend and shine the light on the people in the Great Resignation that just said, I'm not going to put up with what's making me unhappy anymore. I'm going to go make a stand for myself and just find something that's a better fit. I think that's important too, because not everyone can go out and be their own entrepreneur and their own business owner in that independent sense, but everyone can think like a business of one and get a better deal for their business. Does that make sense?
No, it makes perfect sense. And I do agree with you. I mean, what you and I did by stepping out on our own and starting with nothing, it's not easy. It's not for the faint of heart. So yeah, I agree. And a lot of people do need that infrastructure and the back office, support to that. I guess in my conversation with the reporter, it was really from the employer's perspective and how they need to, take more time to listen and ask questions around what the employee needs and what they're looking for and what's their career progression. So one of the things that I've heard you say is that job seekers are now employer shoppers.
They are.
And so I wanted to kind of turn our conversation to talking about the work that you're doing to help employers to tell their stories so that job seekers will fall in love with their organization.
Yeah, thank you for asking about that. What we figured out is that because there's a whole generation of workers now, two generations really, millennials and Gen Z, have been raised on storytelling. Social media is storytelling. And what's coming out of it is, 70% of the workforce in climbing wants to work for interesting companies and interesting people because that's what they've been raised to believe. And so we have to tell them those stories in order to attract that talent. That's what gets them up out of bed every day and to choose to want to come in and give it 200%. And, there have been a lot of companies that got this early on. You probably remember this, Kathleen, but do you remember the email that went around? And it was an email, which just blows my mind. It was before social media. And somebody said, hey, check out all these pictures of what it's like to work at Google. And it was all the interior of Google. I must have got, when that email started circulating, I must have got it 50 times. I'm not exaggerating.
Yeah, the free soft drink and cereal, I think. Wasn't that the big thing?
Yes. And so that was like the first example of what they call employer branding out there, where the employer said, we're a brand. If we want to attract the best customers, we've got to make sure they realize how great we are. And I just can't believe that it's taken this long for companies to get that. I don't know why, but it has taken a really long time for companies to understand that the more they market what it's like to work there, the faster they're going to get the right candidates for the job. And it's not about being fake. It's about really telling them what it's like to work there. The good, the bad, and the ugly, creating that fishbowl effect. So as we got to know our job seekers inside our platform, we found that they look at companies very differently. They want to know, who are the customers they serve? What does the company believe in? How inclusive are they? There are these aspects that people self-identify with and say, I want to be able to say I work at a company that does these things. Not how many employees it has, not what benefits package. It's way more than that. And so companies have got to be able to recognize that. And so one of the earliest customers we had for this was Nike. And we did an article for them called The 7 Things You Didn't Know About Working for Nike. And that has gone so viral that if you just go put in Google right now, working at Nike or working for Nike, what comes up is all the paid ads from Glassdoor and Indeed, which, people know to skip over. Mm-hmm. Then Nike's own job board, but nobody's ready to go there yet. That's what we mean about shopping. They're not ready to just apply. They're doing their research. And then right after that comes up our article. We beat out LinkedIn. We beat out The Muse, Comparably, all these other major sites about employer branding. And it's because when you click on the article, there are these beautiful pictures and explanation about these things you didn't know about working at Nike. And this is the example we love to show people because a company of any size can have this impact. In fact, it's easier for a smaller company than it is for a larger company to rank. And I will tell you right now, people are going in when they hear about your company, they're not applying. They're going over to Google and saying, working at, insert company name here, working for. They all know to do that. They've been trained to do that. So why companies aren't focused on that, I don't know. And that's what we've come and built. We have built a technology platform on Work It Daily that enables companies to tell their stories and socialize their stories. So what that means is we can create one article for you, and within each article, there are a whole bunch of what we refer to as particles. And each particle has its own URL, which means you can go out and socialize it. So now we can write one article for your company about how great it is to work with Kathleen, right? But in it can be 10 different particles that you can now send out on social that all look different and drive people back to the article. So this is content optimization. These are advanced concepts that anybody in content creation, social media marketing understand, but not something that people in recruiting and HR understand. All they know is, oh my gosh, wow, I have all this great stuff I can now share on social media, and it's driving up our search engine ranking, and all of a sudden we're getting the right people knocking on our door. So that's what we are now doing for employers, and it's a lot of fun because telling their stories and pulling the exciting things out about them is, a good thing to do, because we want to match them. We have all these people that are shopping for jobs through our company, and we want to be able to, show them the best employers. So it's exciting. It's exciting to finally see this coming together.
Well, I think it's great because this younger generation is shopping, or they're looking first, right? As you're talking with company executives, like, do they look like deer in the headlights when you are talking to them about this?
Yes, absolutely. It's funny because anybody, if you pull in their marketing group, they get it immediately. And the first thing they're saying is, oh my gosh, you could save us a fortune in job postings, can't you? Yes, we can. You're talking about us creating digital assets one time, and they just get better and better with age. And so these are the kinds of things that the marketing group understands. But to your point, recruiting looks at us and says, what? Why am I telling a story? I just need, 1,000 resumes so I can go through and find 10 and place 5. And what we try to tell them is, how would you feel if really the exact right fit person was knocking on your door and telling you why they completely believe in the company and its mission and what it's about and how they'd be motivated to get up and work every day? And people say, well, we would love that. We're not getting any of that. We're pulling teeth to get people. Well, yes, because you're not telling them the stories that are getting them excited enough to want to put skin in the game and share more about themselves. People have lost interest in pitching themselves to employers. And this is what we want recruiting and HR to understand. There's a reason you're spending hundreds and thousands of dollars posting jobs and not getting enough applicants, or they're doing the easy apply. They're done with it. The whole online job application process is so frustrating to the job seeker. They can't stand it. I mean, I get complaints every day. I just spent 45 minutes filling out an application and I got an auto rejection 3 minutes later. They're done. They want to be really picky. They want to learn about you. They want to study you, fall in love with you, and then they want to reach out to you directly. So you're not going to get 1,000 applicants, but you're going to get the right applicants. And oddly enough, the more of this content that you create, the more demand you create in terms of people wanting to talk to you, get to know your company. It's just not being done once they do it. So we'll say, look, try it. Watch what happens. We'll do a TikTok for you. We'll do a 60-second TikTok, or we'll, put a basic article together and watch what happens. And that's when they see the results. So we make it very affordable so that they can get a taste of it and the light bulbs can go off. Because to your point, if you're not in marketing, you don't generally get this concept fast.
So as I'm talking with a lot of women executives and people of various ethnicities and diversity, they are always asking me about, what's the best way to find out about the CEO and their leadership and their culture. Are you working with any CEOs and encouraging them to start using TikTok?
Yeah, it's funny you say that. So yes. So the executive program that we build is specifically around that. What we did a beta test for a year. We had over 400 executives in a program, VP level and higher, and said, what's your biggest concern? And all of them said cancel culture. Petrified of doing the wrong thing on social media and being canceled. At the same time, I know that people want to know me, know my leadership style, and I want to be able to control that messaging. I want people to understand me. So that's why we built our executive presence program. We said, we can teach you how to do this safely and effectively, because you do need to do it consistently. The thing that I could bring up a dozen things in the news, but there's been one recently where a CEO was filmed when they were laying off a large group of people. And this was the first time people were seeing this executive on camera. And now their whole opinion around that executive is that moment.
Mm-hmm.
But if that executive had presence online, had done other videos, had shared their thoughts and ideas, had built a following, then the interpretation of them could have potentially been very different. Also, by building that reputation and safely working with social media and doing video, they would have been better prepared for how to present that moment and perhaps have done it differently. So we're not giving executives, especially CEOs, enough media training, social media training, video training, in order for them to be able to do this. And they're in the hot seat.
Mm-hmm.
You can't get away from it now. There is an expectation. I tell executives, brand or be branded. If you do not do this, if you do not build a social feed where people can get to know you, it says one of three things. Either you're not tech savvy, so you're old school, so that's not good. There's nothing exciting or impressive about you. So how did you even get to your C-suite place,
Mm-hmm.
right? Is it now we're talking, I hate to say it, are we talking privilege? Did you get there by other means? Because obviously it's not on your laurels. Or three, you've got something to hide. None of those are great messages. So, it's unfortunate, but gone are the days where you could just put your head down, do great work as an executive and, have your job for as long as you want. Now you really are a brand, a very expensive brand. And the sooner you take ownership of that brand and you start documenting your executive presence, your gravitas, right? Those different things, the more control you have when those unexpected moments come up, less likely you'll be canceled. So, that's a very important step in that direction. And I've really enjoyed our program. We took it out of beta mode in July. We have hundreds of new members in it now, people from all different industries, CFOs, CMOs, different parts of the country, different industries, different parts of the world. We're only in English right now, but shockingly, people are signing up. And they're a very tight-knit group of executives who say, I don't want to be, caught in that situation. I want to take ownership and I want to make sure people know who I am and what I'm about. It's not, this is the thing that I think a lot of CEOs, the pushback I get is, well, I don't want to look narcissistic. I don't want to look like I'm
Mm-hmm.
trying to be all about me. That's not what this is about. This is about you documenting. This is reputation management. You have got to document who you are and what you're about so that we can see you consistently. One of the greatest compliments I think that I get when somebody gets on the phone with me for the first time is, I've watched so many of your videos, I feel like I know you.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that because you know what you're going to get out of that conversation with me. Why wouldn't every executive want to do that? So that the younger generations can look them up, study them, and know what they're going to get. It just
Mm-hmm.
works better. There's just so many reasons to do it. I could go on and on about this subject, but yes, we are seeing CEOs. I wish more CEOs would do it. And we are just starting to work with agencies now who represent CEOs and working with them because, not every CEO obviously has the bandwidth to do all of this by themselves. So we work with them on that, but making sure that's very authentic and well documented who they are.
It's sort of like it's just starting to turn. That it almost gets back to what I was saying earlier about employers need to start listening and asking questions more about how their employees are doing, and all executives are having to think a little bit differently. You wrote a piece for CNBC, I believe it was last year, titled, How to Avoid Sounding Fake or Corny on Your Next Job Interview. And what I noted about that was, the candidates need to know their intrinsic motivation before the interview. So hence the career coaching. But it gets back to this hiring leader. Do they know how to ask the question to a candidate so that they won't be left with any doubts about that job seeker's authenticity and motivation for wanting the job? Do you have any go-to questions for hiring leaders to really get to that?
I love that you're asking that. And by the way, I just think it's rare still. You'd think it'd be mainstream, but the fact that you're challenging your corporate clients to say, we have to think differently, that's the start of the process. because so many of them are in reactive mode right now that they think they don't have time to step back and think this through. And I love that you're pushing them to do that, because that's where the real change happens. You are absolutely right. So asking questions in a different way is key. And we've all been trained to ask those behavioral questions, those open-ended questions. And there's common questions we're always asking, but I think we're at the point now where everybody knows them. So for me, if I'm trying to get to somebody's why, their internal motivation, I think it's important to say, how does this job support your goals in your life? Tell me about how this job is going to support your overall happiness in your life. And it's a very positive way of asking that question, but it's also very revealing, because if the first thing they say to me is, well, it's going to help me pay the bills, then I know that this person is far more focused on the money than on whether or not this job will fulfill them and engage them and keep them long term. Now, money is a concern, of course, but if that's the only thing they talk about, then I know this is also a candidate who has not done that due diligence about themselves and has not figured out what kind of job is going to be a good fit. That's a concern to me, because I bring you in and I train you, and 3 months later you decide this isn't the job for you. Oh, very expensive, costly. We both know that, right? Turnover costs. So I think you have to ask them the questions about, how will this job be more fulfilling for you in your life overall? Another way to ask that would be, let's put the money aside for a minute. Put money aside. What are the aspects of this job that you're most excited about as it relates to your life goals? It's okay to ask that and to hear if they've given any thought to it. If they don't have a good answer, one, you can help them a little bit and say, well, have you thought about that? And what's important to you? And, how will a job support those efforts? That can be really positive too, because now they're thinking, well, gee, here's an employer that actually cares about me being happy in my life overall, and I should give more thought to this, or if they don't have a good answer and it's clear they really don't care and they just keep emphasizing the money, well, then this is probably not the right person for your organization. So think about the question, think about the way you can ask it in a positive manner, but get to their core, get to their why beyond money, because that will tell you everything you need to know about how passionate this person is for the job.
Yeah, because I even with all the chaos that's going on, I don't really think it is about the money. It's really more about that. Do you care about me, and do you care about my family?
It is. We've been doing a series right now on social media, and we're soliciting feedback. And obviously, learning how to ask for more money is something that people inquire about all the time. But I'm with you. It's not the primary thing. What's been interesting to me is people have said, I know I've got more potential in me, but I feel like nobody in the company recognizes that. I feel like they don't see my potential, and I can't seem to move forward and get them to realize I can do more. That blows my mind that that's coming up that much, and people feel that way. And the other thing that I'm hearing is that they don't really recognize how much I already do. There are a lot of people that are just feeling overly saddled with work, and their employer does not realize how above and beyond they've already been going. And how, you and I have been saying, gee, running your company isn't easy. People don't realize how hard it is. Well, I think there are millions of people out there in jobs right now that are making their jobs look easy. And their employer doesn't realize. And so instead of getting the employer to realize, they have to get fed up and go find a job someplace else. That's a shame. That's a real shame that that's happening, that churn is so prevalent right now, which comes back to what you've said all along here today. Employers need to listen, pay attention. Just because that employee's head's down over there doesn't mean they're happy. You really want to pay attention. If you want to stop the churn, you are going to have to change this and figure out how your employees, make sure your employees are feeling more satisfied in their lives overall, and that work's fitting into that.
No, I agree. And I've certainly had to learn that as an employer too, but it's a lesson that comes back and pays you 150-fold. So I'm going to talk about something a little different. You clearly have a very full plate, but I know that you find time to get back to the community, and you and I have a shared passion around the mission for Make-A-Wish. And I know that you are the chair of the Make-A-Wish National Board, but I'm curious, what really connects you to Make-A-Wish's mission?
Oh, well, thank you. I should clarify. So I was chairman of the New Hampshire board, and I have served 10 years and had to, by the bylaws, roll off. So I'm not currently on the board right now, but we'll be able to go back at the end of the year off per our bylaws. I fell in love with the
I'm
charity.
sure they're going to all be listening, and they'll all be calling you very soon.
Yeah, I
they're
would love to be
marking
on the
their
national
calendar, JT.
So I fell in love with the charity when I first heard about a wish being granted for a coworker. Years ago, his daughter had a bump on her arm. It went undiagnosed for a long time until they found out it was cancer. It was very sad and very hard to watch. And her wish was to go to Disney, which is you and I both know, very common wish, very popular wish. After she passed, he said he was always able to hang on to the pure joy in her face in that week, and how the whole family just had pure joy for a time, that he could have those memories. So fast forward to turning 40, and I had my own cancer scare, and it turned out to be negative, but it was that moment where I said, I'm building this business. I have 2 healthy children and a husband. I have got to make giving back a priority. And so I made a short list of charities, and Make-A-Wish was at the top of it. And I literally went to them and said, I want to get involved. And that was the beginning of my journey. And the charity gives back to me so much more than I give to it. I can't even tell you. And my husband and I are now wish granters. And I will tell you a quick story. I was able to tearfully send off my wish child and his family on Saturday to fulfill his wish of scuba diving in the Florida Keys. He was diagnosed with cancer senior year of high school. He had to defer going to college as a result, and then COVID hit, and there was no travel. And he went through his treatments and is in remission, and we were cleared to send him on his trip. And I cannot tell you, our mission is to provide hope, strength, and joy. And I just really believe that Make-A-Wish is where modern medicine leaves off, because it can only go so far and it does so much. I feel like we pick up. I think it's magic medicine, right? Wishes are magic, and they do something. I think all of us know the power of positive thinking that it has on us. We've tons of studies to show health related. And I just feel so lucky to be a part of that and to send them off on this amazing trip. And they've been sending me pictures, and I'm texting them that it's 7 degrees here, and they're saying, well, it's 70 there. And to see him smile, like just grinning ear to ear, there's just nothing like it. And so I love the charity. There's so many worthy charities. I just want to say that if you're involved with any charity, you're doing great work. So please know that. But I thank you for asking that, because I know you'll have to share how you got involved with the charity, but it's so near and dear to my heart. It'll always be a part of me.
Yeah, well, I think that, ours was very similar to yours. My husband had a couple cancer scares, and then my son had a friend who was in high school and who had leukemia, and he actually gave his wish back. He donated his wish back to Doctors Beyond Borders, and that's when we got involved in the organization and have been part of it for many, many years. But yes, you're absolutely right. There are a gazillion fabulous organizations out there, and I think just like anything, it's being tied to the mission and being able to give back.
Yeah.
I also learned another thing about you, that you are a fitness instructor.
Yes. So
seriously, when do you have time to do that?
Well, I have to be honest, I have not been able to teach in the last year or two with COVID and whatnot. So it's been a couple of years since I've been an active instructor, but I became a fitness instructor at the same time that I left corporate America. Part of my certification was to go through neurolinguistic programming, NLP training. And so the assignment was to take something in my own life that I needed to change mentally. And I'd always thought I was not an athletic person. Growing up, I wasn't into sports. And so I went through this test, this process, and the end result was, if I got certified as a fitness instructor, it'd be impossible to say I'm not athletic anymore. That would change my mindset. So I went and got the certification and fell in love with group fitness. And so I've been teaching classes ever since, body combat, dance classes, you name it. I miss it. I can't wait to get back to it as things get more settled. But it is definitely a lot of fun.
Well, I can see your next TikTok coming up.
You can see why I tend to like to dance every once in a while on TikTok.
Yes, exactly. Yes, you and Ellen. Oh gosh, JT, it's been just really great visiting with you. But before we go, what are some of the best ways for people to get in touch with you?
Yeah, so obviously social media, LinkedIn, TikTok, you can message me there. You can head over to our website at Work It Daily. We have a contact page there, and all of those messages get directly to me as well. And I welcome the connections. I love connecting with people and seeing how we can assist them in any way possible.
Well, and I can say that as a testament that you definitely do, because you reached out immediately when I sent you an email. So it's been great getting to know you over the past couple of months. So anyway, so thank you so much, JT. I really appreciate it, and I look forward to continuing to follow you and seeing all the cool stuff that you're doing, not only for candidates but for employers too.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. And thank you, everyone, for listening.
Her name is JT O'Donnell. She is the founder and CEO of Work It Daily. And that's it for another episode of Revolutionizing Recruitment. I hope you enjoyed the show. And if you did, make sure you take a second to subscribe so you automatically get my new shows when they drop. And if you have a minute, I'd love if you left us a review so more folks like yourself can discover the show. Until next time, take care.
This has been Revolutionizing Recruitment with Kathleen Duffy. To connect with Kathleen or to learn more about recruitment research, go to duffygroup.com.